Hey, what's going on, guys? It's me, Namejamie, and I'm gonna be doing a January patch review for Brawl Stars. I'm gonna break this up into two parts. First, I'm gonna be talking about the balance changes that happened 4 days ago, and then I'm gonna be talking about the miscellaneous and game mode changes that happened about 2 days ago. If you enjoy any part of this video and want to see more of it, the next change, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe down below, or maybe just comment your own personal thoughts on some of these changes. So first, we're going to hop right into it, and we're going to talk about the balance changes. So one thing to note real quick before I talk about these changes are that I play mostly Showdown. So a lot of these changes are going to be from a Showdown perspective. And on top of that, I don't have some of the star powers for all the characters or most of the characters in the game. And because of that, I had to wait a few days to get a better opinion on some of these changes themselves and some of the changes specifically that focus on the star powers of characters. So hopefully these comments are a little more valid than some people who released videos before this. So the first change we have here is Nita increased star power healing from 300 to 500. Nita was a pretty mid to mid low tier character, so I definitely think this buff helps her out a little bit. It helps her brawl on certain maps a little bit better, get that little extra healing that you need to maybe make her a solid mid to upper mid tier character. So I'm a big fan of that buff. Then you have Brock. Brock got increased star power damage per second from 240 to 300. Although this is a buff, it's pretty irrelevant actually. You never really use Brock's star power because mostly when you hit someone, they're never really in that same tile again to stand on the fire. So, I mean, it might be helpful taking boxes, but I really don't really see this being like a buff at all. It's maybe like it's a slight change, it's a slight increase, but really it's pretty irrelevant. And a few of the champions we're going to talk about actually fall into that category with their star power. So next we have Bo. Bo got a massive nerf here. So he got decreased star power visibility range from 6 tiles to 4 tiles. And then he got increased main attack damage from 420 to 480. So the reason this is an overall a massive nerf is because Bo is one of the worst characters in the game until you get his star power. Then he becomes arguably one of the best characters on some maps. And nerfing his star power is really, really, really hurtful for him. And buffing his main attack here is sort of irrelevant. Bo's main attack is super easy to dodge. It's one of his biggest weaknesses, and I think like his biggest game design flaw is that his main attack is so bad compared to some other characters. It really makes him unviable, and the way they made him viable was by making him have this amazing star power, and now they've nerfed his star power and haven't really addressed his auto attack issues. So definitely a massive, massive, massive nerf. To be honest, though, I thought this was the right change. I wanted to see his star power change, but I really want to see an overall rework of his character model. And so just nerfing his star power here, I think, is bad without fixing the rest of his kit. Next, you have El Primo. El Primo falls in the same category as Brock for this change. He got increased star power damage from 600 to 800. So big number change, a 200 damage change difference. But again, it's pretty irrelevant. The star power on Primo isn't really used that much. People don't really walk back into where you body slam them to take the flames damage. So again, it's a nice change. It's definitely a slight buff, but again, like Brock, pretty irrelevant, and I don't see it being the difference between Primo being good or bad. Like, it's just not really that relevant. Next, we have a big change like Bo. We have Barley. So we have, I'm going to say, an overall really big buff for Barley. So you have increased star power healing from 200 to 300. Increased main attack damage per second from 600 to 640, increased super damage per second from 480 to 640. When throwing super close to Barley, the spread of the bottles is now much larger. Also, the damage from the super's different bottles do not stack anymore. Okay, so first you have the increased star power healing. Sort of like Anita, except it's only half of 200. It's 100 this time. It's going to be pretty nice, but again, I don't really think it's going to be the big difference between whether you live and die, but it's overall a slight buff. It's going to be pretty useful. Then you have the increased main attack damage per second. This one's going to be massive. So not only is this the extra little damage I feel Barley needed to like sort of chase down targets and make sure he finished them off, but it's also going to be really nice for his early game and taking boxes because boxes are going to take that double tick damage. So that's very nice. Next, you have the super damage per second from 480 to 640. This balance change sort of counteracts the next part of this, which is that his bottles don't stack at a close range anymore. So this is nice because it's a good counter change. It's a good like change of pace because it's gonna change the way you play Barley. Like on some maps, when a shotgunner is running up to you, especially on those close quarter maps with a lot of walls, you used to just be able to throw Barley's alt right next to you and just evaporate like brawlers. It was insane. It was so much damage. So now that the bottles don't stack and the spread's a little bit larger, it's gonna make it so you're gonna use your alt to kind of trap people in the middle of it and get them to take that tick damage, which is pretty nice. I think it's the way Barley like should be played. Um, and I think it's an overall a pretty nice change. It's definitely a good way to balance him out. And I'm going to say overall those changes are definitely a pretty solid buff for Barley. And I'm happy to see it considering how much weaker I think he is than Dino Mike. So I think I'm very happy with those changes. Poco, increased star power healing from 400 to 500. Pretty nice change. I didn't think Poco was that bad or necessarily needed a buff, but this is just like one of those slight buffs that are just going to make him a little bit better. So overall, I'm okay with it, and I think it's a pretty good change. Daryl, I am not a fan of this change. First of all, I play all my characters in Showdown around like 500 trophies. So people I play with generally know how to play pretty well. People who play at the 500 level range know how to play Daryl. They know he isn't a shotgun character or like your traditional shotgun character. He's more of like a vulture type character where he comes in at the end, steals away the star powers, and kills someone, right? I just didn't think he needed that change. I thought he was perfectly viable the way he was. If anything, I thought he was pretty good. So these changes seem to be targeted at those low level 1 to 200 level or trophy people who don't know how to play Daryl and just think he's bad. So I'm not necessarily a big fan of sort of catering down to the lowest player with changes and balances. But the good thing is that these balances aren't game breaking. They're just going to make him definitely, I think, top tier. So the first one is increased star power shield protection from 30 to 40. That's going to be big. Again, you're taking less damage. Your shield is bigger. That's pretty nice. The next one is even bigger. He's increased main attack damage per shell from 260 to 280. These last few days, I've just been running into Daryl's, and they've been killing me, and I'm like, how did I die there? How did I take so much damage? You definitely notice this damage difference. So I think overall, again, I'm not a fan of these buffs. I don't think he needed them, but they don't put him in like the Leon category of completely and utterly broken. So I guess I'm not too mad at them. I guess it's just gonna shift the paradigm of the meta right now. So it's gonna be what it is. Terra, increased star power pet damage from 200 to 400, so double. Increased pet health from 2000 to 2400. I'm a big fan of these changes. I think Terra needed changes. Personally, I wouldn't have gone with these ones because I don't think her star power is that useful in general. Oftentimes people just instantly kill the pet. So increasing its health and damage by these little bits isn't really going to make a difference. I would have liked to see her auto attack damage increased a little bit. But again, any buff to her, she was pretty weak. I'm a big fan of. So overall, I'm going to say yes to that buff. I think it's pretty good. Leon, can we just take a moment of silence first of all to thank the balancers for attempting to nerf this absolutely broken character. It's so insane. I think he needed 1,000 times more nerfs than this, but this is a step in the right direction at least, and we'll jump into the first one, which is decreased super invisibility time from 10 seconds to 8 seconds, and decreased main attack damage from 500 to 460 at close range. So the first one, this was the right move, but not enough. Most people, and me especially, if you played him in the last few days, you know that the difference between 8 and 10 seconds is irrelevant, right? You always found, most people before the patch always found a target before 10 seconds, so 10 seconds was way too long, and the same is for 8. You still find a target to get out of stealth and burst people down, or if you need to run away, you can still run away in 8 seconds. It's still too long. Most people I know who were talking about it wanted to nerf his time down to like 5 or 6 seconds, so I guess 8 is a little bit better, but it's still way too long. And the next is the decreased main attack damage is nice, but he still does way too much damage. He burns boxes in one to two auto attacks. He can kill most close range champions and do as much damage as a shotgun character at close range. It's insane. It's insane. So the way I would have liked to see Leon nerfed is to nerf his speed. He runs way too fast. He runs the same speed as El Primo, who's literally a melee champion who has to be right next to you to hit you. And this guy is a long range or mid-long range, mid-range, and short range character, and he can run as fast as El Primo. So his speed needs to be changed. His ult still needs to be reduced by a few more seconds, and his damage just needs to be tuned down. Or there has to be a better way to dodge his spread of bullets, because currently it's like undodgeable. Like at least you get clipped by at least one of them every time. So I think this is a step in the right direction, but not nearly enough. Next, you have Mortis. Increase main attack and super damage from 800 to 900. Star Power no longer leaves a green skull. Instead, when Mortis defeats a brawler, he instantly gains the 1800 health. So overall, I'm a big fan of these changes. I definitely think Mortis needed a buff. The unfortunate part I think about these changes is that Mortis will never be played in Showdown because his kit just doesn't fit in with the rest of the game. He's not a shooter, right? So he's just never going to be good enough unless you make him super broken to play in Showdown, I feel, because he can't take boxes for crap, which is crucial to a lot of Brawl Star characters in the Showdown. So these changes, I think, are just going to make him really good in Brawl Ball and maybe Gem Grab and a few other game modes he was already really good in, which I guess is okay, and I definitely think he'd need a buff, but I don't know. Maybe I just would have gone about buffing him a slightly different way. But overall, I'm going to say that these buffs are still pretty good, and I'm a fan of them. Frank, you have the star power no longer leaves a purple skull. Instead, when Frank defeats a brawler, he instantly gains the buff to increase his damage by 40% for 10 seconds. So much like the Mortis change with his green skull, big fan of this. Frank needed a slight buff. If anything, he needed a little bit more of a buff, but this is definitely a step in the right direction, and I like this buff because it just takes something that was in his kit that didn't really make sense and tweaked it and fixed it a little bit better and made it a little bit better, so I'm a big fan of that one. Lastly, we have Rico. Rico's main attack damage from 280 to 300. This is nice because Rico has like one of the longest ranges in the game, but when you were shooting people, it just felt like you weren't really making an impact. In the last few days, I've definitely noticed a slight damage increase, and I actually feel like when my bullets hit someone, they make an impact and they mean something. So I'm a big fan of this one. I actually like that Rico change a lot. Now we're going to talk about the game mode balance. So Brawl Star got hit biggest, I would say. Brawl Ball got hit biggest, and Brawl Ball now has no behind the net space, so no space behind the goal. You now spawned inside the goal, and when you kick the ball without a super, it now consumes ammo. I'm a fan of all these changes. I don't play Brawl Ball a bunch, but when I did play, I didn't like when the ball got stuck behind the opponent's net or your net and someone just kept it back there and you could never get it because people spawn back there too quickly. So I'm a big fan of changing this and making people spawn inside the goal and just kind of letting you get back into the action a little bit faster and block potential shots and just kind of make the game a little more fun. So I'm a big fan personally of those changes, but I don't play the game mode a bunch, so maybe people didn't like them, but personally I enjoy them. Showdown. Players' names are now empty instead of question marks over 300 trophies. Sort of irrelevant, just a quality of life change. Poison doesn't deal damage instantly when it spawns or grows. This is actually a big change that kind of just flew under the radar. So a lot of times in 1v1s at the beginning of Showdown, people will hug the outside wall on some maps, and that damage used to change, like completely change the 1v1, where someone would instantly take maybe 2,000 damage from the poison, which I kind of liked. It was like kind of neat to see, and then, like it was kind of fun to force your opponent to the outside and make them take that damage. Now, you don't. And also in the end, in the 1v1 situation at the end on some maps, people can hide behind walls that are being enclosed by the poison, and that instant poison used to not let them heal up, where now they're able to get that 1-2 extra seconds of healing that they really need to change the dynamics of some 1v1s. And I'm just not personally a huge fan of that. I kind of enjoy the instant poison, but I feel like maybe it's a little bit of personal preference, and I don't really think it's necessarily the worst change. So overall, I guess I'm sad about it, but it's not really going to make that much of a difference in a lot of the Showdown games anyways. Next, we have Bounty. Game mode length reduced from 2:30 to 2 minutes. This is a big change. I personally really enjoy this change. I thought Bounty was a little bit too long. This now makes Bounty feel, I think, a little bit better paced during the game, and it makes Bounty a little bit more viable when you're pushing certain champions for trophies. So I'm a pretty big fan of that change. I actually like that change a lot. Next, you have Raid Boss. These are just some quality of life changes. Now shows when the next boss rage stage is triggered. Added one more rage stage. Show in-game which difficulty you're playing. So again, just quality of life, not that big of changes. And then lastly, we have one of the biggest changes, I think, for sure, and that's all modes. Green bushes no longer grow back after 35 seconds. I'm a big fan of this change. I think once you destroy something, it shouldn't come back. And this allows you on a lot of characters to use their ult to clear away bushes and gain line of sight, which is really useful on some characters, say like Colt. Because now you don't have to contest the bushes where shotgun champions are sitting. And that's super nice. And now they don't grow back. So I'm a big fan of this one. I really like this change a lot. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the more cosmetics and miscellaneous changes, two of which are really big, but the rest are sort of irrelevant, but we're going to talk about it anyways. So first, we have a new brawler coming. Genie, I think her name is. She's a support from what I've seen. I haven't seen a ton of her, and I'm not going to talk much about her because I think I'm just going to wait until she comes out to fully review her and talk about her. But I'm very happy about new characters coming to the game, and I really like they're adding more supports to the game. I think that's really cool. Next, we have the new skins coming. You have Daryl, Brock, Colt, Bull, Poco, Rico. I'm pretty happy about those. I like adding skins to the game. I think it's a nice way for the company to make money, but not like impose upon players in things that matter. It's just like a cosmetic change. I like that a lot. Next, you have the new character models and skins, and this also is coupled with the FX effects, or I think that's what they're called, the basically the bullet changes and the way things look. This looks absolutely amazing. It looks stunning. I am so happy they implemented this change. I love playing the game just to look at it now. The new skins look so nice. Spike looks so much better. I like looking at his character model now. It also feels easier to aim at him. I'm, again, just a big fan of all these visual changes. I think they did an amazing job. We're just going to scroll by these. We already went through these. These are the game mode changes. And then we're going to get down here to the miscellaneous. So you have performance enhancements. That's nice. You got some chat and club improvements and some shop improvements. That's all nice. And then we're going to get down here to one of the biggest changes that no one really seemed to talk about, and that's the economy change. So first you have star power gem price lowered from 266 to 233. I don't think that's going to affect most players. I think it's kind of irrelevant, but it's nice. But then you got players token limit increased from 100 to 200. This is fantastic. I love when games don't force you to play all the time and they allow you to AFK if you have a really busy day, but still catch up to other players who want to play all the time. I really like that mechanic because I don't think sheer time into a game should necessarily be the one determinant of how far you go. I think a certain amount of skill should also be involved, and this sort of balances that out where it just allows you to catch up to players who are necessarily playing a bunch but aren't super skilled. And if you're super skilled and you play a little bit, you should still end up in the same place. And it also is just a nice quality of life change where it allows you to progress faster in the game. Overall, I'm a massive fan of that. I really like the change. Yeah, and that's basically all I have to say about that one. We have the maps and rotations. Basically, some of these aren't important. They basically just added some new bounty maps and kept some same, and they kept some heists and bounties maps added. They also combined the two of those, I'm pretty sure. But then you have some big changes where Showdown is now the only game mode with event modifiers. This is massive. Personally, I hate this change. This and the next point are the two changes I hated. I'm not really sure what the logic behind this one was. I thought event modifiers were a nice way to add a layer on to the original game to spice things up and make game modes fun. And if you end up not liking that specific modifier on that map on that game mode, you could just not play and you had 3 other game modes and it was a lot of fun. But for people who did like it, they could play it. I thought it was really nice. It had a lot of variety, and I'm not positive why they got rid of it. Maybe there's some reason on Reddit or people were complaining about it on Reddit. I don't really read Reddit that much. But personally, I thought the community overall really enjoyed these. I personally really enjoy these. So I'm not exactly sure why they got rid of these and not a huge fan of this. And the next one I'm even more sad about, which is removed Life Leech event modifier. This is heartbreaking. I love Life Leech. I know a lot of people loved Life Leech. So I'm not positive again why they moved this one. It stopped teaming. It was fast paced. Yeah, the healing champions were a teeny bit broken, but you could have just nerfed them down, I think, for that specific game mode if that's possible. I'm not sure, but I love that game mode. It was amazing. The no teaming was the most refreshing part. It allowed me to climb characters. I have a Crow guide coming out at level 1 where he plays Life Leech all the way to 500 trophies. It was a ton of fun. It was the most fun I've ever had playing. I'm really sad they got rid of this, but hopefully they either had a good reason for it or people in the community will voice their opinion enough that we can get this back, because personally I really loved Life Leech and I'm kind of sad they got rid of it. And lastly, we have removed gem grab, bounty, and heist maps that were rarely in rotation. A nice quality of life change. Yeah, and that's going to wrap things up for today's patch overview, guys. Remember, if you enjoyed this video or enjoyed any of my comments, like, comment, subscribe down below. And also maybe just let me know your own opinions down below. And I usually respond to all the comments. So I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Woo! Hey.
do it for the love.